political scientist, strategist, researcher, administrator, journalist, writer, and former political advisor to former President Olusegun Obasanjo, Akin Osuntokun, Balogun Osuntokun. Joins us now. Good to have you, Balogun Osuntokun, on the program. Well, let's start first, before we go to the nitty-gritty of the President's Democracy Day speech. Let's talk about the significance of June 12. What is the importance of June 12 in Nigerian history?
Well, you know, the most significant aspect of historically is that it galvanized the democratic participation in choosing the leadership of Nigeria. It set the template that with the possibility of accepting coup as a means of transfer succession of leadership is not acceptable. And of course, it also set Nigeria onto a crisis of national emergency. That between 1993 and 1998, Nigeria has gone to the extent that descended to the extent to which it has nation-defying or nation-breaking propensities. I mean, we all we're in Gadia together to witness it first, so you can easily corroborate what I'm saying. But so it's highly significant, and this to now use it symbolically to mark it as Democracy Day, I think is very appropriate. And that's one decision in which I'm in agreement with President Buhari. So that's, but in other respect, something is brewing, and on which the June 12 election wants to be used in a negative way. And that is the idea of justifying the ticket, the presidential ticket consisting of Muslim presidential candidate and also with a Muslim running mate candidate. Now, there was nothing deliberate about how it happened in June 12. The circumstances that led to that of June 12 was not contrived, nobody was deliberate, nobody saw it coming. And then secondly, people were just tired of military rule, anything to disengage the military from power. Thirdly is the fact that those who you will feel that are holding the short end of the stick, that's the South. The governors of the SDP in all the southern states and of course in the North were actually the pressure group who wanted Baba Kingibe as running mate in the full realization that he's Muslim. But it's not something that, so citing it as a precedent, it's not exactly correct. The possibility, the potential for the candidate of the APC, if it's a Muslim, that is likely to pick a Muslim running mate, because it is efficient, in getting votes, but it's not good for the country. And the excuse that, it's not the excuse, the reality that the northern Muslim electorate will raise, their preference will be for religion at the expense of something like national integration. So it's left for the president and those who will take this decision to go further to prove the act of statesmanship. And it's not good for the country. We can do better than that. And you have seen that the kind of controversy it is going to generate has started since about a week ago. So what Nigeria can do without that, what is.
Well, I get the point you are making. You've jumped from the past to the future, and I'll get there in a moment about this Muslim ticket. But let's roll back to the past. The president in his address today mentioned Bashorun MKO Abiola and how June 12 defines its place in Nigerian history, its symbolism and all of that. And you have moved ahead to talk about the Muslim ticket. But let's talk about Bashorun MKO Abiola himself. His place in Nigerian history. The decision, which you already referred to move Democracy Day from May 29, which is the automatic date for transition, to June 12, the symbolic date when Bashorun MKO Abiola won the presidency of Nigeria, which was then denied on June 24th, 1993, leading to a wide range of reactions. Now, what's the symbolism? Because today is also about that symbolism, that example, his place in history.
Well, his place in history is assured. It will be remembered as the Abinga, of democracy if we sustain the current momentum. And of course, he was someone that demonstrated, exemplified sacrificial mentality. He exemplified it when especially if you look at the background. Meaning no disparagement. He was quite a flamboyant, happy-go-lucky, wealthy man. He's one of the last people you think that will now, insist, on making that sacrifice, and the extent, at the expense, of his, lifestyle. So you see that we also learn that lesson from him. That if a man, for me personally, it was very heroic. That if he could go from, and I'm sure his friend Babangida was surprised. Many people who knew him were surprised. They were taking it for granted that he would let go of the mandate and get on with his life. So you have first and foremost the Abinga of democracy in Nigeria, and something who sacrificed a lot, who sacrificed all he had, for the realization of that objective. It may not have been his projection, but that is what he has done for the country. And this, we have been building upon it since that time, And he also gave the example of a politician whose thought, was the idea of national integration and unity. He was as popular in the South as he was in the North. And before he became the presidential candidate, it was acceptable across the land. So it was a unifying figure in Nigeria at that time. I remember he won, was it the ward of polling booth of his opponent, Bashir Towa in Kano.
That's true.
So he has sent a template, for the positive harvest that we are having today. And as I said, this is one policy in which I will commend President Muhammadu Buhari for putting in effect. The idea of accepting the fact that today, as Democracy Day, in remembrance of MKO, and is a positive moment. And you remember that the day he bestowed, the policy was announced. Critical people, like Professor Olisanyika, they all went to Abuja, to a sort of acknowledgement of the magnitude of what it was. Something that, it was a very great positive step. And,
okay. Here we are, 22 years later, right? 29 years later, since 1993.
Yeah.
Now, the subsequent events saw to the exit of the military. The annulment of June 24th, 1993, of the election of June 12, 1993, triggered popular rebellion against military rule in Nigeria. And we've had, over the years, since 1999, civilian rule. democracy, although it's been described as putative, developing, whatever it is, do you think that that transition has been beneficial to Nigeria? On Democracy Day, can we look back and say that democracy has brought us greater progress and development in Nigeria? Or it could be a moment for regret, not to the extent of saying the military should come back, but to say that the military failed us, the politicians have also failed us. Where do you think we can comfortably stay within that spectrum of analysis?
No, they are not comparable. I mean, you can't compare. It's not comparable at all. Whatever may be the shortcomings of the Fourth Republic, right? It is ultimately better, to have participatory democracy in which people participate or determine who will govern them. So, on the basis of that, which is fundamental, on the basis of that alone, it's beneficial. But don't also forget that we had the history of a long military dictatorship interregnum, and they've proved the kind of leadership that they could offer, which was, mostly bad, and one of it actually pushed the country to the edge of disintegration. So if we were to learn from what their own history, the history of military dictatorship in Nigeria, there is no basis, for imagining that it would have been better for the country. They created a problem to which June 12 was a response. So there is no basis. In any case, I mean, like Chief Abiola spoke about it again, that look, colonialism is itself something like crime. We have no say, in who becomes our president. It was imposed. So there is no basis for comparison between the two. They are fundamentally, there's a fundamental paradigm, difference. But as I said, we are not just talking theory. We also talk reality and practice. We saw what the military did with power. We experienced it. So I don't think that, democracy, especially the past several years, has not worked, to produce the kind of, sustained positive effect that we think it will. You hear things, people saying today that Nigeria is more divided today than at any other time. Unfortunately, this is true. And the kind of, insecurity crisis that we are going through, is unprecedented. But having said that, and coming back to the utility of democracy, now we are now given the choice, we are now given a chance to correct that next year. Okay, whatever you may think of the Buhari government, we now have an opportunity to demonstrate it at the polls that, or whatever it represents or his political party. We are now giving, you mentioned, how people are rushing to get their PVCs. Well, now, Nigerians are more determined today, to go and vote than before. And one of the reasons is negative. In other words, they think that it is because of their apathy, that led to the emergence of a president like Buhari. On the other hand, is that you have quite a potential great leader. That's picture of, in the offering that has caught the imagination, of the younger generation and rooting for him. So to that extent, the democracy, you see it as an instrument of, normalizing politics, leadership for succession and recruitment, serving as an instrument for realizing that. So we are going to see democracy is not guaranteed to succeed, right? I think it was Churchill who said, democracy can be a bad government, but there is nothing better than it.
The worst form of democracy is better than the best form of military.
We have had the negative benefit of dysfunction. It has been dysfunctional. But as a fundamental concept of governance, it is incomparable. But Unfortunately, in Nigeria, almost everything, any instrument or whatever it is, becomes a dysfunction.
Okay, let's go now to interrogate the president's speech briefly as we can. The president says, after paying tribute to the struggle of heroes past, he talks about the signs being positive. And he anchored the positive signs on the fact that we have seen increased women and youth participation. And you address that, in parentheses by saying that, look, Nigerians think it's the apathy that caused whatever problems we have had. So everybody wants to participate. They want to get their PVCs. He also talked about issue-focused campaigns, that the campaigns have been issue-focused. Well, do you really agree with him that politicians have been very civil in terms of their relationship with the opponent, and that there has been increased participation? Well, you already answered that latter part. But do you really think that the signs are positive?
Well, if he said that, well, he observed it in the breach. His own stewardship had not measured to what he himself is acknowledging as what is good for the country. So, if people, leaders should live by example, not precepts. So there is a gap between what he is preaching, what he is advocating, and the reality of his own stewardship. And you see, even the outcome of the APC primaries, was quite. It ended in the manner it ended, not because from what we have read and what he has done, not because of his will. I think it's despite his will. Now you have a party chairman who announced that President Buhari has directed for him to announce somebody as consensus candidate. Now, of course, it was disowned. Now, that's Lawan. He said the president eventually disowned it. But if actually the president, if he disowned it, then that party chairman should have been sanctioned immediately. The magnitude of what the man did, right? Suppose somehow it went through like that Ahmed Lawan becomes the presidential candidate of the APC. Now, that means we are going to have two Muslims from the north as presidential candidates of the dominant party. Now, those of us who preach national integration, those of us who are appalled by that prospect, right, are proven right. Now, you can see that if you have two Muslims from the north as presidential candidates, having the backdrop or background of what happened in Owo, the massacre at Owo. Now, that is the kind of, you can see that if you put the two together, it is going to result in something very disastrous for the country. So this is why we preach national integration, unity in whatever aspect you do, so that it does not become, the kind of disparity, in what people, or a cause for a casus belli, right? These are the ramifications of what. Look, you remember what Professor Wole Soyinka said, yesterday, that it was a message directed at the Southwest. It was a code, and it was clear, in making that point, that we have given it to us and we have accepted it as that. Now you can now imagine. That's what I said. Go back. You can now imagine that backdrop, having two Muslims from the north, as a candidate. Now, it has gone well. I mean, it is more or less, but there is still a lot of obstacles, and I dread potentially what is going to happen with the candidacy of the presidential candidate of the APC. In a few days' time, you will have to take a decision on that. And as I said, potentially, the kind of decision that he makes is also fraught. It has a potentiality to set the country again, on the longitude of crisis.
You keep referring to the possibility of a Muslim ticket, which we saw with the example of MKO Abiola and Babagana Kingibe in the 1992-1993 process. Okay, maybe we should interrogate that a little bit. You are a student of realpolitik, even if your hero is Max Weber. You know, but okay, let's put it like this. Political parties want to win elections, and they will do whatever it takes to win election. Because of what use is a political party that cannot win or grab power. As for the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, he has no option, it will appear, other than to take his running mate from the south. Where he chooses that running mate from the south, you know, it's a matter for him and the stakeholders in his party to decide. As for the candidate of the APC, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, okay, he too has no option but to choose from the north. And we talk about these two because they belong to the two dominant political parties. Maybe Labour Party, you know, where you have Peter Obi as the standard bearer, could, you know, upturn the calculations, could prove to be a disruptive factor. But now you talk about a Muslim ticket. We're being told that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's best strategy to counter what may emerge to be the dominant influence or impact of Atiku Abubakar in the north is to pick a Muslim from the north. Now, the Christian Association of Nigeria has said such a thing must not happen. Some analysts are saying it may have worked in 1993, but this is 2022. The dynamics have changed. But what says that such a move will not work? Because if Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu sees that that's the only way he can win the election, and as some people argue, they say there are no strong enough Christian politicians in the north. So what will he be left with? Can he take that risk? And if he takes that risk, is that risk as heavy as some analysts, including yourself, put out, beyond whatever Christian Association of Nigeria may say?
Well, you know, first and foremost, there is no continuity in the logic of what the northern governors did. They insisted on the presidential candidate going to the south. Now, if you want to continue with that logic, that is a sense of balance, or what it leads to is that you also have a balanced, you know, a balance in the ticket, in the faith or profession of those two, the presidency and his running mate. Now, you see, Governor El-Rufai did play a strategic role, I'm told, in garnering, you know, getting all the governors from the south, from the north, to do what they did. But where I'm surprised is that he's a clear advocate of a Muslim ticket, or that he thinks that it is irrelevant. And he was citing his own state, that he has been his own running mate or deputy governor is a Muslim, so he had governed with that. Now, what he didn't say was that how peaceful has been Kaduna State since he came up with that ticket. You know, how peaceful in the past 4 years, you know, and can he say, and logically, that there is no correlation between that ticket? It may not be the only thing that accounted for it, but it's a potential factor, right? Alienation breeds, confrontation and conflict. So, for me, it is not. It's efficient. I mean, having a Muslim ticket is efficient. You know, it's probably will get you votes, and that is why people say that, you know, politicians look to the next election, or statesmen looks to the next generation. You know, it's not again. Now, you don't do things that may seem, you know, momentarily okay without, you know, factoring the consequences. You know, things are going to happen. Immediately I mentioned the massacre or whatever it is. Things are going to happen that will play into the narrative that, look, about Muslim, you know, domination or whatever it is. So it is, I mean, it's, as I said, it is an efficient, way to get the votes from the northern, the predominantly Muslim areas of the north, and that are particularly attached to their religion. It may not be the same in the southwest. Southwest is unique in the respect when you're responding to the religious factor in politics. But where he is, as I said, why is it that the Middle Belt, the Christian North, the Middle Belt, has been, the scenario, the setting, more than any other place in Nigeria for the kind of crisis, violence that we have had, in the past few years. The Muslim herdsmen or Fulani herdsmen are consistently pitted against the Christian settlers in North Central State. So how you can look at that, if we have that kind of experience, immediate experience, and then say that, look, it doesn't matter. So how did you arrive at that logic? That it doesn't matter. You said, okay, somebody did it 30 years ago.
Okay, we have to wrap it up now, but quickly before we go, one of the things President Muhammadu Buhari said in his Democracy Day speech is that he's promising free, fair, and transparent elections in 2023. From what you can see on the ground, the process now, will he deliver that as he has delivered his last Democracy Day address?
Well, look, we have a three-horse, candidacy between us, and it kind of mimics, 1979, where you had Shehu Shagari as presidential candidate of MPN, Abiola as presidential candidate of UPN, and Nnamdi Azikiwe as the presidential candidate of NPP, and Ibrahim Waziri as presidential candidate of GMPP. Now you have, again, Atiku Abubakar as the presidential candidate, corresponding to the north of the PDP. You have Tinubu corresponding to the southwest as the presidential candidate of another party. You have Peter Obi, an emergent leader of Nigeria, but having his base at the southeast. And you also have NMPP of Kokonso, threatening to disrupt the northern equation. So it almost apes that, but I'm not, there is nothing again. There's nothing in the history of the presidency of General Buhari from which I can logically project that all will be well. Look, one of the backgrounds of the primaries was the president talking to the governors some days before the primaries about reciprocity, right? That they should give him, the backing for him to choose a presidential candidate. So you see, it was not his doing. If they had accepted that, probably today we will be confronted with Ahmed Lawan as the presidential candidate so when President Buhari says something, don't be worried that you may find the contrary happening the following day. So there is nothing in Nigerians that will make the 2023
You are saying I should not take the president of Nigeria seriously.
You interviewed him in sometime a while ago at the Aso Villa. He said he has a favorite, but he won't disclose it because he doesn't want the person to be eliminated. Now, so how do you reconcile this background? He also went now further to say that he expects reciprocity, for him to. So that is not the history of a president who was going to leave the primaries, to the logic of free enterprise. So if we have a free and fair election, it will not be because the president works so much. It will be despite, his own
On that note,
position.
I would like to thank you very much, Akin Osuntokun, for joining us on This Day Live, the Sunday Talk Show.